Khalil Gibran Muhammad is a professor of history, race and public policy at Harvard Kennedy School. He joins us via Skype now from Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. Thanks for being with us. So I want to ask you first of all about the point that's been made about these groups that this is nothing new in terms of the fact that they've been around for a long time, but they've always been kind of on the underground, and lately we've seen a lot more of them in the open. What do you put that down to?
Well, I certainly think that the election of Donald Trump is a major factor, but I think it's important to point out that this isn't just people donning Ku Klux Klan hoods or wearing symbols of swastikas, etc. If you recall, on Friday night, hundreds of people gathered on the campus of the University of Virginia in everyday summer attire, khaki shorts and polo shirts. These were everyday Southerners, the same kind of people that helped to erect the statues that are now coming down in New Orleans and in South Carolina and the debate in Virginia, because they were everyday people who believed that the South really had to control its minority populations. And that's the fundamental issue. If you put it just on the alt-right, we miss the larger culture that made this violence possible, of which Trump is a symptom of.
And when you hear people like David Duke saying this is the moment when we take our country back, what does that mean to you?
Well, it means that the demographics of America are absolutely changing. Its Latino and Hispanic population is growing, and the notion that America will be a minority population, majority population by 2043 has stirred a hornet's nest of white supremacists who believe that America must remain a white Christian nation. And so their ire, their violence, their vitriol is directed towards not just black and brown people, but also to Mexican Americans and Central Americans, as well as to Muslims.
And when we look at the reaction to what's happened since Saturday, do you have hope perhaps that that this may have sort of reawakened many people to push back against what we're seeing?
Well, I want to reserve a bit of realism in this moment. I think we're seeing the beginning rather than the end of the alt-right and white supremacist movement to use violence as a means of maintaining what they believe is a country they're losing. I don't think that the problem is a larger population of white Americans who haven't realized what's been going on. Maybe they will come out, but I think even the violence we see on the ground in Virginia is a reflection of mostly white people against white people. But the alt-right is not going away, and they're going to use this as a moment of victimization to say that the media didn't condemn the left, and therefore they're going to have the same kind of urgency to respond to the next instance.
What about the fact that a number of Republican leaders, many of whom support President Trump on a number of issues, have been quite unequivocal in their condemnation of this and saying quite clearly that this is the work of white supremacists and it's wrong. Do you, I mean, what do you take from that? I mean, is this something that, is this a position that Donald Trump is not going to be able to keep justifying?
Well, let me be clear. The Department of Justice, for example, is the part of the federal government most responsible for protecting, through law enforcement, the civil rights of Americans. The head of the Department of Justice, Jeff Sessions, is now systematically trying to undo many forms of racial progress that have been unfolding over the past 50 years. To say nothing of affirmative action, of which Donald Trump and Jeff Sessions are now going after. So there's a lot of polite rhetoric about condemning violence in America, condemning white supremacy. Republicans in general have co-opted the language of civil rights for a very long time. So I take no comfort in the fact that Republicans can condemn people wearing Ku Klux Klan hoods when many of those same Republicans are crafting policies that will take us back to the Jim Crow era.
Good to speak with you. Khalil Gibran Muhammad joining us there from Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. Thank you.
Thank you very much.